How good was that day when you found out you were good?
It was great. I mean, if I'm going to put top 5 moments on my life, that's one of them. It's news you're always hoping for, but you're never promised, you know? Yeah. So in February of 2015, I would have characterized my life as some of the best times of my life. I felt like I was on top of my game professionally. In my relationships, I was enjoying my work, my life, the city I was living in. I honestly could not have asked for too much more. In that month, I had started playing intramural soccer. And I remember feeling pain in my lower left side. And, thinking, oh, maybe I just hurt myself in the gym or hurt myself playing soccer. And, 10 days went by and I just could not shake this pain in my lower back. And I went to the urgent care and the doctor, inspected me. And she said, you have kind of a heaviness in your testicle. I think you need to go get an ultrasound done. And I said, okay. I've had pain, in my testicles before, like all men do, sure. So I go to the doctor and I get an ultrasound done. And the doctor, you sit down and he goes, hey, I don't want to scare you, but it looks like you have these calcifications on your left testicle. I can't tell you what that is, but it's bizarre. You need to go to a urologist and get this checked out. And he goes, I don't want to say you have cancer, but it's possible. And so I walked out and thinking like, okay, that escalated quickly. I thought I just hurt myself playing soccer. And so I went to the urologist, and again, there's still no answers. I see the urologist and he inspects me and he says, listen, I don't think you have cancer. Some men have this. What we're gonna do is we're gonna do an MRI. So we'll just take a better look at the region. We're gonna do some blood tests, and we'll call you back next week. And so I do the MRI, I do the blood tests, and I was actually at work. It was, I think like a Tuesday. It's like 3:30 in the afternoon. I get a phone call from my doctor, and I pick up the phone. He goes, hey, where are you right now? I go, oh, I'm at work. And he says, hey, I hate to tell you this, but you have cancer. Your blood test came back. We look at this level called your AFP, which is a particular protein in your blood. A healthy male has a number between 0 and 12. Yours is at 18,000, which would suggest that you have a really aggressive form of cancer. You need to come in as soon as possible. We need to have surgery, and we need to remove it. Oh, by the way, you need to have a CAT scan because we don't know how far this has spread in your body. And I hang up the phone. I think I was pretty much in shock at that moment. And I remember I went up to the rooftop of my building, and our building was right on the National Mall. And I called my dad. I said, hey, Dad, brace yourself. I got some kind of shitty news. And I told my dad. And that was obviously pretty distressing news. They said, oh, well, you need to come back to California right away. Come to California, we'll do the treatment there. I said, no, I want to be in Washington. This is where my support network is. This is where my doctors are. This is where I want to be. This is where Ryan is. And, I went back to my urologist. I got that CAT scan done. And he goes, okay, great. Well, we'll do the surgery. We'll remove it from your testicle. And guess what? That'll probably be it. We'll check your numbers again. That'll be the end of this. So I have the surgery. I go back in. And my AFP level, which I had mentioned was at 18,000, had gone up to like 24,000. And he goes, oh, geez, that's not supposed to happen. It's supposed to come down. We'll look back at the CAT scan, and that actually was the most frightening part of it all, because at that point, I didn't know what was happening and how far it had spread. So I remember sitting there as he's going through the CAT scan and just being really nervous of like, okay, what's the damage? And sure enough, there was a 7.5 centimeter tumor about the size of a small navel orange in my abdomen. And that was what was causing me my pain. And they said, okay, that's why your numbers are going up, because this tumor is growing so quickly in your body. We need to start chemotherapy tomorrow. Not just chemotherapy, but 4 rounds of it, which is like 3 months. By the way, do you ever want to have children? You should probably go to a sperm bank. Oh, and also the chemo is so toxic and burns your skin that we need to actually install a port in your chest that can put a tube into your throat, because that is a stronger vein for the chemo rather than destroying your arm. And I remember kind of like being, like it all being very overwhelming, and I wasn't really emotional until, and I still to this day, when the doctor said, you know, just prepare yourself because you're gonna lose your hair and you're gonna go through all of that. So I was diagnosed stage 3 testicular cancer with a 7.5 centimeter tumor in my abdomen. And the 4 rounds of BEP chemotherapy is what the doctor diagnosed. And the chemo is really great at melting away that cancer, and it's really good at destroying your body in the process. And so for 5 days a week, I went to GW Hospital in George Washington, and I had a backpack with books and an iPad and music. And you know, for the first few weeks, I looked like any other student that was just going to school. But I was headed to the cancer center to go get treatment. And that was tough because you're surrounded by people of all walks of life with various diagnoses. You know, frankly, it's a really depressing place to be because you're there and everybody's fighting. You know, you want to get better, you want everyone around you to get better, but you know not everyone's gonna get better. And, you know, I watched my hair fall out, literally from the top of my head to my eyebrows, body hair, all of it. And, you know, you can wear caps and beanies and all the rest, but, you know, it took a lot internally as I would walk around the city. And, you know, later into my treatment, I was essentially on lockdown at home because my white blood cell count was so low that I was at risk for infection. You know, when you get home, you're fatigued. I would often break out in a fever. You felt sick and nauseous. And I would go home and I would take a nap. I'd fall asleep. And then the very next day, I'd do it all over again. And that was really tough. And it really wears you down. The worst days, you can't get treatment because your white blood cells are so low. So we're going to give you a shot to promote white cell growth in your body. And you say, okay, what's that? I've been pricked 100 times today. What's another shot? And that was actually probably the worst part of my treatment, was they would give you this shot that it stimulates your bone marrow to produce more white blood cells. And I can't describe bone pain because I had never had it in my life. I had broken my wrist playing high school football, but it was nothing compared to the shock waves of pain that just radiated across your body. And I remember lying there on the couch and I would talk like this because I just felt like I was inserting my pinky into an electrical socket. And the next day I went in and they checked my white blood cells, and my white blood cells had barely moved. And I was just so depressed by that. And so I couldn't get treatment for a second day. And then the third day I went back and my white blood cells had like increased tenfold, and it showed that it was working, and I was able to get treatment again.
Okay. All right. Ready? Got it?
So I finally finished my chemotherapy, and after 3 months, and I do another CAT scan, and they find that there's still this tumor in my abdomen, and so I need to have surgery. And there's only a few hospitals in the country that actually perform this surgery. One of them being Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore, Maryland, which isn't too far from Washington. So I went up there and met with the surgeon and a doctor, and he said, okay, well, let me tell you what's gonna happen. This is can be an 8 to 10 hour surgery. What we're gonna do is we're gonna essentially cut you open right below your chest, all the way down to your groin, and we're gonna remove the tumor and every lymph node that we can find in the region to make sure that it doesn't spread anywhere else in your body. It was tough because I wanted it to end at the chemo. You know, And this whole time, it was supposed to end at that first surgery that I had back with my urologist, and said, okay, that's it, that's gonna be done. And then it said, no, now you need chemotherapy, and that was supposed to be done. Now you need to have surgery, and now it's supposed to be done. And then what happens then? And every step, mind you, that you go down this process, your survival rates begin to tick down because it's one salvage after the other. Went to the hospital, and they performed the surgery. It lasted 8 hours, and they go so deep, that when I woke up, my surgeon told me, he goes, hey, by the way, I saw your spine. It looks clean, but we got it all out, and we removed 70 lymph nodes from your body, and I had to learn how to walk again, and that was tough. And my doctor said, okay, come back in October. We'll do a biopsy of the tumor that we removed, and we'll tell you the news as to what we need to go from here. I said, okay. So I went back to the hospital, and I was with my mom. And he came in and, looked at my scar, and everything was healing nicely. And he said, well, we looked through the pathology reports, and the tumor in your abdomen was necrotic tissue, which means it was scar. It was dead. No more signs of cancer in your body. That's it. You're done. Wait, so I'm cancer-free? That's it? I'm done? He goes, as of now, there is no detectable trace of cancer in your body. You're cancer-free. And that was obviously a pretty great day. One of the greatest of my life. And, I called my mom, or I called my dad, who wasn't there. I called Ryan, called my friends, and I celebrated, and I was so happy. Throughout my bout with cancer, I can honestly say that I never lost hope. I never got too sad or depressed or felt like I had to take it out on somebody or on myself. I didn't blame anyone. I didn't blame God. I always just believed that, okay, this is a really crappy situation. I have to put my faith in my doctors and in science and the people that came before me and know that it's going to be okay. I would say the biggest lesson I took away from this experience was not to sweat the small stuff. And I've always had that kind of mentality. I think my friends would describe me as somebody with a very calm and chill demeanor. I really did my best to not let it consume me and to try to maintain my relationships with people as if things were normal. And when I was done, and I finally got to go back to work, I remember putting on a suit and tie for the first time, and I was still so bald. I had no hair on my head, and I was the happiest guy to go into work that day on the bus. I remember I jumped on the bus. It was a Monday morning, and everybody's all tired and groggy, and it's a typical Monday morning in Washington, D.C., but I was just so elated to be back at work and have a purpose again other than going to the cancer center. And I remember the first day I was in our employee meeting, and some drama was going around about something so inconsequential, and I could just see the attention that it demanded on people's faces in the room. And I remember chuckling to myself and thinking, it's good to be back in an environment where this is the most stressful part of the day. Like this is nothing. And guess what? I just beat cancer. Nothing else is gonna feel stressful to me.